spot shifted a little bit. I wish that was a little over, but like I almost put it in the center because I didn't have one for both sides, but I have, oops, I just dropped. Okay, but I created a stamp that I didn't think would work with the center. So I put it on the side. I created two versions. This one I think is just going to be, I don't know, it might work. I'll test it out on the end pieces, but I'm gonna infill it with a mica stamp. So we'll see. Isn't that top? I just love the top. Like, I needed white. Like, I wanted this nice contrast of white and red, but I also didn't want a plain bar inside. Hence, excuse me, the holly leaves around the edge. And I think this will work. I said, I wish they hadn't gone quite down to the bottom, but that's okay. There's a couple bars where I had a little bit extra that I put on the other side. So the question is, the 3, the 4, or should I just have had 2 on the bottom? That's the million-dollar question. I actually don't mind the 4 kind of framing it, especially if the stamp fits just right in the middle. I think it will look pretty. Those are the 2 stamps. I actually like both. I don't know which one to go with. I think I might go with this one just for this soap. But yeah, I do like both. So now I'm like, I thought this one would be the clear winner, but I'm not so sure. Let's see, I will try it and see how it looks. Ugh, that didn't push in. That's better. It's not awful. You can see how the stamp, I don't know if you can see there's a big hole right there, because the stamp is pulling out the soap when it comes. I think part of that's because I just cut this and it's still fairly soft, and so it's pulling it out, which I think that when I infill it, it will still be fine. I mean, it's just one section's a little deeper. So that's that tree. I think I'm gonna stick with that tree, even though I do like this one. Well, so I'm just gonna go ahead and stamp the rest of these, and then we'll come back and do the mica infill, which was the whole reason that I made this soap, is because I wanted to play with that even more, and do a little tutorial on it, because I really liked the results that it gave. I don't know if you saw the horse soap. This is the horse soap, and that infill that just stands out. I really liked it, so I wanted to try it again, and do a little tutorial on it. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish stamping all of these, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I'm going to be infilling these with mica. To do that, I basically take the mica's color you want. So I'm going to do blackish green from Just Pigments for the green, and Snowflake Sparkle from Brambleberry for the white. I'm doing the star in white. I really don't want yellow in this. I know that's the more typical, but I think yellow would just not work. This is white, red, and green, and it's going to like stay that. I think adding yellow would be a mistake. So I've put my colorant in and just a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Now I use 91 or 99 because it will evaporate pretty quickly. If you only have 70, you can use that. It will just take longer to dry. So I've made sure I mix this really well. The mica will start to settle, so I always mix it before I pull it into the pipette. And careful how much, because this can leak pretty easily. So I'm just going to drip a little bit into the star. And that one I got a little too much, but I'll show you how to clean it. You want to have enough mica. If you have too little, once the rubbing alcohol dries, you won't really have much color in the stamp infill if you don't use enough mica. That's also why you really need to mix it in between each section. Like the star is so little that there's not a whole lot of that I have to add, but the green I will have to add a whole lot more. And this just went over, but I'll show you how to fix it. The easier of them. So if you look at that, you can see how it's gone over the sides there. We'll clean that up after it dries. So I'm going to do the green. And just rubbing alcohol. And just mix it all in. And we'll see how this goes. Hopefully the stamp is deep enough. Remember, this can leak. So now the goal is to get it to infill. Into the grooves. I try not to go over outside of the grooves, but as you can see, it's hard to do that, so there's going to be spillage, but it can be cleaned up pretty simply. Okay. We're going to clean that up and make it look cuter. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and just fill all of these trees. And then we'll come back once it's dried and clean everything up. So now that they're infilled, it's time to clean them up. Let the rubbing alcohol completely dry. You're going to have the easiest time and results if it is fully dried. So this is one that I had already cleaned up, and then I planed it, and you can see it gets a little slightly messy and you lose some of the depth of the stamp. So I don't particularly like planing it. If you had a stamp that was much deeper, you probably could get away with it. You'll have to play. So when it comes to cleaning these up, I experimented with a whole bunch of things. I basically took some paper towel, cut it up into small pieces, and then cut up dry pieces. And I tried rubbing alcohol, I tried water, and both work. I think this has just a little bit of rubbing alcohol in it, just barely to make the cloths damp. I also experimented with the Clorox wipes, which those worked as well. If you feel comfortable with that, that works. But I'm using some just very slightly damp cloths and rubbing alcohol, and then the dry cloths. And so the rubbing alcohol in this is not 100% dry, but basically I take the damp cloth and I slide it over. Now, the more complicated the design, the more of a pain it's going to be to actually clean up. So I definitely think this method works better with simpler stamps. Like this one is much harder to clean up than this one. Once this basically gets dirty, I discard it for a new one. I will also take the dry cloth and kind of, like I said, once I rub it once, I fold it over to get a new clean spot. But I will just, like I said, rub it down just to kind of clean up the little overfill. And so you go from something like this, which still isn't dry, but you can see, to this. Now, this is by no means a simple, quick technique. It definitely takes some time, and the more complicated the stamp, the more time it's going to take. I don't generally recommend it with a complicated stamp. I mean, unless you have the patience of a saint and the time. It's just a whole lot of work. But like I said, if you wait until the rubbing alcohol in the stamp has dried so that the mica is not wet, because if you're using a wet cloth and the rubbing alcohol is still, again, wet, liquid, not dried, the cloth is just going to soak that up and it's going to drag the color all over and it's going to be a pain to clean. So you definitely want to make sure that you let it dry. You're going to have the easiest time cleaning it up if you really let it dry. And just said, go over it and kind of wipe it up. They said this is a much more complicated design. It's a pain to clean. But I was trying, like I said, I've been experimenting with different stamps and different ways to clean it and fill it, and I figured I would show you both. And I just rubbed green all over that. That was really smart. Clean that up. So yeah, it's, again, this is, take it or leave it for what it is. You can always dip your stamp in mica and then just stamp it on. But that works to varying degrees. This, I just really like that crisp, dark infill you get with, gosh, isn't that just gorgeous? with the soap. My hollow leaves did not cooperate in this batch. This is batch 2. But that's okay. I still think it's pretty. I really love it. So I'm going to just go ahead and clean up the rest of these. I've got 3 done. 13 more to go. But that's how you can clean it. Again, you can even try just dry little cloths first and see how that goes. Experiment, play around. I also recommend starting with a super simple stamp design first. It'll be less frustrating. I started something with something too complicated and I was annoyed. But I'm persistent and so I stick with things. And it did work. But yeah, there you have it. So nice, just squish the tip of that. So that is mica infilling. Hopefully it was something new and interesting and you enjoyed the video. And so yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish all of these up and thanks for watching.